Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly paradigm-shifting analysis of artificial intelligence. We're going to dive into a recent and honestly fascinating academic white paper by Dr. Bichara Sahely called Artificial Intelligence and the Conditions of Life. We hear about AI literally all the time, right? Its risks, its benefits, the economic impact. But this paper, it takes a completely different approach. It asks us to look way past the usual technical benchmarks and really examine how AI actually impacts the fundamental conditions that allow human and ecological life to thrive. It's a brilliant framework. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's set the stage with the core, provocative question that frames our entire analysis today. Will AI remain a servant of life, or is it going to become a substitute for life? This is the central tension we're going to explore. And to be clear, the author isn't just being anti-technology here. The issue isn't whether AI is useful. We know it is. The real danger, as the paper argues, is when intelligence becomes completely detached from the actual conditions of life.
To really grasp this, we have to look at the author's foundational concept. Dr. Sahely defines AI as this massive, planetary infrastructure for producing symbols. Think about it. Language, images, classifications, predictions, these are all just symbols. But the paper makes an absolutely crucial distinction here. A symbol points, but a condition enables. A map can guide you, but it sure isn't the land itself. A medical diagnosis is a symbol, but it's not the actual process of healing. AI is churning out these symbols at a scale we've never seen before. But those symbols, they aren't actual wisdom. They aren't lived reality.
Now, what's really striking is the idea of AI as this symbolic machine operating high up in the clouds. It's outputting language, classifications, and recommendations all at warp speed. But what about the roots? AI remains completely, utterly detached from embodiment. It doesn't experience human grief, it has no ecological dependence, and it completely lacks lived accountability. It's just operating from a distance, completely insulated from the real, physical world.
And this leads us to what the paper calls the illusion of intelligence. It's so easy to confuse fluency with truth. AI can speak with incredible fluency, right? Stringing together these perfectly coherent, beautifully written sentences. But fluency is absolutely not the same thing as truth. A machine can sound incredibly articulate and confident without actually knowing or understanding the reality it's describing. It's a really important distinction to keep in mind.
We can build on this by looking at decision-making. The technology is undeniably fantastic at predicting patterns based on massive data sets. But here's the catch. Prediction is not judgment. True human judgment requires weighing context, navigating really complex moral ambiguity, and integrating lived experience. And a statistical prediction model, it literally possesses none of those things.
To complete this thought, just think about how algorithms interact with us every single day. In AI, personalizing your social media feed or chatting with you is simply modeling you based on your data. That is fundamentally entirely different from a relationship. A real relationship requires mutual recognition, shared vulnerability, and actual, genuine care. A machine just can't do that.
And this dynamic represents the central pathology that the paper calls symbolic substitution. It's what happens when artificial outputs try to replace our organic human requirements. Symbolic substitution happens when the symbol of a thing dangerously replaces the actual life condition it was meant to serve. So, when an AI's fluency replaces our own pursuit of truth, or when its optimization replaces our human wisdom, the machine shifts. It stops being a helpful assistant and becomes this life-disabling substitute.
Section 1. The 5 Faces of AI, Defining its Roles in Society. Let's move on.
So how does this all actually show up in our world? Well, AI can take on 5 distinct roles. First, it can just be a tool, bounded assistance that augments human capacity while we keep the responsibility. That's the ideal. Second, it can become an oracle. This is a seductive source of instant certainty that kind of invites us to surrender our own judgment. Third, it can be elevated to an idol, a system granted so much trust that we actually sacrifice our privacy or our environment to appease it. Fourth, it can be an enclosure, locking our shared knowledge and attention inside these proprietary corporate walled gardens. Or fifth, and this is the hopeful one, it can be a commons, an open shared infrastructure governed to genuinely serve human life and repair.
Section 2. Scaling our inner flaws, the mirror of AI. Let's dig in.
Now, shifting the narrative to human psychology for a second, we have to explore what happens when this powerful symbolic machine meets our own unexamined vulnerabilities. The really crucial point here is that AI acts as a mirror. The machine doesn't just create human immaturity out of nowhere, right? It optimally scales our existing inner flaws. Our human fear, it gets externalized and scaled into AI surveillance systems. Our loneliness, monetized into a dependency on artificial companions. And our natural human desire for status gets transformed into these massive algorithmic ranking systems. It's wild when you think about it.
The paper emphasizes that when AI is structurally coupled to extractive institutions and these immature human desires, it essentially automates our immaturity at a planetary scale. Seriously, if a media system thrives on outrage, AI is just going to manufacture that outrage way more efficiently. The technology simply learns the pattern we give it, and then it maximizes the loop.
Because of this feedback loop, the harms of AI go way, way beyond just a chatbot giving a biased answer. The paper breaks down AI harm into 4 unique layers. First, there's direct harm. That's the visible injury, like a biased hiring algorithm. Then there's structural harm. That's systemic dependency, like a whole workforce losing its labor power. Third is cultural harm, which is when we actually change our narratives, like when we start to believe that human judgment is obsolete. And finally, there's spiritual or developmental harm. This occurs when we use AI to bypass the hard work of human maturity. Using it as a savior rather than doing the messy, difficult work of learning and relating ourselves.
Think of these harms like a tree. The direct harms are really just the visible branches, the injuries and manipulations we can easily spot. But treating just those surface-level branches, it's kind of useless if the structural roots beneath the soil, like automated inequality and ecological burden, remain completely toxic. We have to look at the whole tree, the whole system, to understand the true impact.
Section 3. The Life Capacity Test, Evaluating AI's True Impact.
So how do we actually fix this? How do we evaluate AI properly? The author outlines this triad called the Life Capacity Test, and it completely shifts the paradigm. Instead of just asking, is this AI efficient or is it profitable? We really must ask, does this AI help human and ecological life to continue, recover, and flourish? Continue means protecting our basic safety and dignity. Recover means the system allows for feedback, error correction, and repair when it inevitably causes harm. And flourish asks if the AI actually helps us develop higher capacities, like learning and wisdom, rather than just de-skilling us.
If we think about a growing plant, we can understand this a bit better. True AI alignment isn't just about matching user preferences. Think about it. If a user prefers constant distraction, aligning to that preference actually harms them. True life alignment means ensuring that the intentions, the incentives, and the institutional structures governing AI are fully aligned with the biological and social conditions of life itself. The system has to be corrigible. It has to be correctable by the living, breathing communities it actually affects.
Section 4. Enclosure or comments, the ultimate choice.
This brings us to a major crossroads as a society regarding the fundamental ownership and purpose of our AI infrastructure. The first path is what the paper calls AI enclosure. This is the capture and privatization of the shared conditions through which we make meaning. And the big warning here is that convenience often masks a terrifying dependency. Sure, we get frictionless, instant answers, but in exchange, our attention, our cultural data, our creative labor, and our knowledge pathways are totally captured by proprietary, closed machines.
This is the privatization of what the author calls our world-making capacity. When closed, proprietary machines just suck in public data, labor, and culture, we have a massive problem. The paper pretty clearly proves that if we aren't careful, we are going to lose sovereignty over our own ability to think, to create, and to govern democratically. We'd just be trading it all away to a few concentrated, incredibly opaque systems.
But wait, there is a hopeful alternative, and that's the AI Commons. This is where AI is treated not as a private walled garden, but as a shared, life-serving infrastructure. In a commons, AI is governed collectively. It's there to support public truth, accessible education, and ecological repair. It actually shares capability rather than extracting and hoarding it for a select few.
Now, achieving this requires some very serious nested governance. Keeping AI as a life-serving tool isn't just going to happen automatically. It requires action at absolutely every level. It starts with our own personal agency, having the discipline to use AI without surrendering our own judgment. Then, it moves up to institutional accountability, making sure organizations are responsible for the systems they deploy. It requires national policies that protect the public interest against monopolies. And finally, it demands global coordination to ensure AI operates within the actual, material, and ecological limits of our planet.
I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with a really profound, lingering question drawn straight from the text. What are we allowing machine symbols to replace within us? As you go about your day, using predictive text, asking a chatbot for advice, or just scrolling through a highly personalized feed, ask yourself, is that technology really helping you continue, recover, and flourish? Or is it quietly substituting the real, messy, beautiful conditions of your actual life? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking those big questions and keep learning.